I'm glad that you all are here. My name is Nora Salas. I am the director of the Cucci Office of Local History, which was created through the generous support of Dr. Paul Cucci, a Grand Rapids resident and retired anthropology professor. And although Buzz, as he was known to his friends, unfortunately passed away in 2017, his vision of an office at Grand Valley State University dedicated to the collection, preservation, and dissemination of the diverse histories of underrepresented groups lives on. And we would really like to thank everybody who has donated to support this event and the Cucci office in the past as well. So thank you all so much for that. There are still opportunities to donate to support our work, and periodically throughout this event, there'll be information about that on the slideshow. Or you can also go to our website, which is gvsu.edu/Cucci, which is Kutsche. And next, I'm going to turn it over to Dean Mark Schaub, Dean of the Brooks College of Interdisciplinary Studies, for the rest of our welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nora. I also want to acknowledge Nora's colleague who's out in the lobby, Ryan Moore, our small but spirited and results-driven staff of the Cucci Office of Local History. As Nora said, my name is Mark Schaub. I'm the Dean of the Brooks College of Interdisciplinary Studies here at Grand Valley State University. And on behalf of the college and its many programs, as well as the institution, I want to welcome you to this event here today. Brooks College houses a college within the college, the Frederick Meyer Honors College. We have a host of interdisciplinary programs. We lead the 8 colleges at GVSU in terms of serving adult learners through our online degree completion programs. Our students are across Michigan as well as the whole United States to do their bachelor's degrees with us. We also have a lot of other interdisciplinary programs, particularly feeling the scope of attention these days. We have LGBTQ studies, we have women, gender, and sexuality studies, African American studies, Latin American studies, Middle East studies. The list goes on. And we are resolute in our purpose and delighted to be doing our mission to serve students at the institution. We also host the Office of Sustainability Practices for the entire university. And in that way, I can tell you we can do better. We can do better. We can do better, and are trying to do so every day in doing better at treading lightly and respectfully on this earth. And we can't do that, tread lightly and respectfully on this earth, with the genuine acknowledgement of this land, the stewardship of this land, the history of this land, and the constructions that we have made here as an institution and as a society. And that is to acknowledge the people of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples. And it's not enough to just say we acknowledge the ancestry and longtime stewardship and continued stewardship by these people, these neighbors, these mentors, these colleagues. It is to continue to endeavor. And that in just one way that we in Brooks College are trying to do this, trying to do better, is our recently launched grant project, 2i Seeing, that's in partnership with the Native American Advisory Council and NASA here at GVSU to indigenize the curriculum one course at a time, team teaching between our regular staff, faculty, and as well as guest co-instructors from the Anishinaabe community. So this project being supported with the Native American Heritage Fund is just one of ways we are trying to do better. So I'm very excited to be here today for yet another roundtable, the Cucci Office of Local History. I look forward to panel number 1, the subsequent panel this afternoon, and this evening's keynote address. And of course, I'm always looking forward to a free dinner with all of you, fellow enthusiasts of the diverse history of this area, this city, this region, these counties. So welcome to this annual event. And I am delighted. Oh, well, speaking of colleagues and people and longtime friends who do their best to tread lightly and respectfully on this earth and try to make the earth a better place, working with our students, supporting our students in mission. I've worked with Peg Padnos for many years in my previous job as the executive director of the Padnos International Center. So I really have known her to do so many things for this institution, its students, and its educational mission. And now, since I've become dean of the Brooks College and involved with supporting the work of the Coochie Office of Local History, she's been on the advisory board for the Coochie Office of Local History longer than I've been involved, and she continues to serve as that advisory board's chair. I introduce for you Peg Padnos. Thanks, Peg.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. So I have a great honor today, and it's one of my favorite things of the year, participating in the roundtable and making this award presentation. The Gordon Olson Award was named in honor of the former Grand Rapids historian. His books, Leadership, Programming, Mentorship, and Advocacy, inspired generations of West Michigan residents. So it's a great pleasure today to announce the winner of the 2024 Gordon Olson Award, Ron Yob, chairman of the Grand River Bands of Ottawa Indians. As chairman, Ron has dedicated his life and work to the promotion and preservation of Anishinaabe history. He has excelled at developing partnerships with historical and educational institutions, including the Grand Rapids Public Museum, local colleges, and public and private K-12 schools. Ron himself is a retired Grand Rapids public school teacher, as well as an adjunct professor at Aquinas College, and he is a 1980 graduate of GVSU. He has shared history in too many ways to count: museum exhibits, historical markers, lectures, tours, heritage events such as the annual Homecoming of the Three Fires powwow. In reviewing Ron's nomination, our committee particularly was impressed with how his work has been a lifelong project which honors local history without erasing the contested meanings of marking both our past and present. Of particular note have been Ron's efforts to create greater awareness of the 19th century treaties signed between the United States government and indigenous nations. This has included working with the National Archives and the Gerald Ford Presidential Museum to bring the 1855 Treaty of Detroit to Grand Rapids in 2006. Similarly, in 2021, Ron led a commemoration of the 200th anniversary of the Treaty of Chicago in Abna'awan Park. Throughout his work on the awareness of treaties, he has emphasized the fact that the loss of lands that these treaties created live on in the present as painful reminders for the indigenous people of the United States. For many, this history is profoundly uncomfortable. But Ron has guarded these difficult truths on behalf of all of us. As a history concentrator myself, I have the most profound respect for his work at a time when history is, quite frankly, being attacked for the discomfort it might cause. I especially admire Ron for his contributions to the preservation of the Grand River burial mounds. This is a place of deep historical, cultural, and spiritual significance. It's an ongoing reminder of the lives and deaths of the indigenous ancestors who walked these very lands where we now live. A few years ago, the Grand Rapids Press asked Ron about the experience of bringing the 1855 Treaty of Detroit to the Ford Museum. His answer was simply wonderful. I may not be quoting his exact words, but I think he said that this work was akin to picking up a loaf of bread on the way home. This is what I am supposed to be doing, so I did it. We here in West Michigan are more than fortunate that Ron has made such monumental efforts to tell and share the stories of the Anishinaabe people as part of his everyday life. We can both hope and believe that his work will inspire others to make their own contributions to local history. So hearty congratulations, Rob. So maybe he can come get his award.
Getting this award is just kind of, I generally don't like to get awards. I'll actually tell you why. Someone asked me earlier about it, and I won't ramble on too much about this. But when I was teaching in high school, I was tasked with gathering up Native youth that weren't attending schools and that were having a rough time on the streets, and me being an old outlaw bike rider, it was no problem to gathering these kids up. But I started getting national awards for dropout prevention. I had to go to Albuquerque for one. I had to go to Washington D.C. I had to go to Atlanta, Georgia, to get these awards. And I really thought when I was doing it, it was for the good of the school, But I got actually pulled away in the classroom by some male teachers and told me not to be getting these awards because it's making the rest of us look bad. They said, you're teaching these kids and these kids are unteachable. So after that, I kind of shied away. When people would ask me about awards, I would kind of say, no, don't give it to someone that likes that stuff, But I realized that I should probably get these awards because it shows my students and stuff that I worked with and the street people that I work with. It shows them that they can come from that background and still achieve things, And so I felt like these awards don't come to me, but they actually come to our whole community and our tribe. And so I decided that I better get these awards, or let them happen, I am a graduate of the school. I went way back in the 70s. I graduated in the 80s. I actually extended it a year. I should have graduated in 79, but I was the very last graduate to walk the aisle from Thomas Jefferson College. When they did that, they closed the school down, and they said they were going to close it the next year, so I didn't apply for graduation because I knew my name was Y, and I could be the last one. And I looked on the list, and I was the last one, so I sat there, but it almost foiled me because when we went up to get we had little cards with our names on it. When we went up the aisle to get our cards, I was on the end of the aisle, and they said, come this way. And I thought, oh, man, after a year of planning this, I'm going to lose that distinction. So I actually turned around, went up the aisle, and the usher was trying to get me to come back. And then when I seen our roll in, I went back in line again. So I can say I was the very, very last student to get the award from or get diploma from Thomas Jefferson College at that time. It's long gone now. I also was the very first student here that got the Native American Indian tuition waiver. I went to the financial guy, a guy named Lewis Merriweather, and he hadn't heard about that program. And so he says, well, connect me with the people that administer it, and we'll set it up here. So I did, and I was the very first student to get the tuition waiver. I heard someone last week say they were the very first Native American Student Organization president, but that was wrong. I was the very first one. He did it in 1990. I did it in 1978. But apparently there was a lapse somewhere. So when I catch up with him, I'm going to correct him. He'll like it though. He'll honor that. I do a lot in this community, but I do it because I don't want when my grandkids, great grandkids, great grandkids come along. I don't want them to think that their great grandpa is just sitting on his butt, talking this stuff but not doing anything. So I kind of get active. I was part of the 70s peace movements and such, and part of the American Indian movements in the 70s. So I kind of learned activism, And one of the things they kept teaching you to do was organize, and gather your people together. And that's what I spent a lot of time in my life doing. I better cut it short because I'll ramble on till 8:00 if you let me. But I want to talk about a couple of things I did here. And one of them is across the street, they did an archaeological dig around 25 years ago, 20-some years ago. And that was our village. And because of the NAPCA laws, we were given full access to that. We had a little pass that we can go in behind the gates, and I'd bring a lot of school kids and stuff there. Well, I wanted to put a plaque or something there. Just a little park bench maybe, and a plaque that would commemorate our village site. That was one of our Grand River villages there. And I went to President Lovers at the time and met with him. And he talked to me for about 20 minutes, and he says, well, where are you going to get the money to do this? And I said, well, first I got to see if I can do it. Then I'll worry about the money, but I got to get permission to put a plaque there. And he turned around to a lady sitting next to him. Her name was Jean Enright. And that was kind of his right-hand woman or whatever. But he says, budget them $30,000 for this plaque. And so he immediately felt, he thought it was good, and he said, yes, we should do that. So if you go to that Ballotine Park across the street, I actually named that park Ballotine in our language, means the rapids, and I actually wrote the plaque. Now, I want to read you something from the plaque, just some of the words. It's not the whole plaque, but this is something I thought was very important. He allowed me total free speech, kind of like what you just said, say what I want to say. So he allowed me to do what I want on this plaque. So, but what I want to talk about is the Indian. This is a quote now. The Indian trails that lead to this point have evolved into highways and streets that come here from all directions. It would please the souls of the peoples of this village to know that Grand Valley State University has been established here, and people from around the world still follow these trails to come here to study and to take their lessons back home to share with others. It is hoped that the spirit of this village will continue to exist, and this place will continue to generate precious memories. And if you go over there, there's a little bit more on there, but I wanted to read. I thought that was important. I wanted to let people know that there was a village here, and now Grand Valley State University sits right on it. I hear people do a lot of land acknowledgments, but they generalize it. This was a specific Grand River village, not a Three Fires village or not any of the other tribes around the nation, but a specific Grand River village, and the United States government specifically treated us with it. My great grandfather actually signed a treaty here along the rapids in 1855. And if you go great, that's 4, and then the grandfather, that's 5, my mother, that's 6, and I'm number 7. I'm the 7th generation from the signatory to that treaty. And if you look in our traditions and culture, there's a lot of meaning to being the 7th generation from there, I'm going to do one more thing, then I'll let you go. Otherwise, I'll get, I'm not sure how much time I got, but if you ever want, you can catch me somewhere and I'll talk your ear off if you want. At one time in Grand Rapids, and I have to thank Grand Rapids Downtown Inc. for this, because they support me a lot. And they do a lot of, I think, a guy named Andy Guy and Kimberly sitting back there do a lot of stuff to support us, And at one time by the railroad bridge, it's not on location, but there was a plum orchard there, and it consisted of 3 circles of plum trees of red, yellow, and blue plums. And they say it was, I wasn't then, that was in the 1800s, and they were in a circle approximately 250 feet around. And on the eastern side of that orchard, there was a entrance in the eastern doorway. And in the middle of that plum orchard, this was cultivated by the Grand River people. In the middle of that orchard was a wigwam, a little hut, lodge. And when women of the village would have problems of any sorts, they would go in there, and the other women of the village would come in and comfort them, and not necessarily all women, but they would go and comfort the women. But it was a place for healing, and this was 200 years ago, Well, lo and behold, the settlers or powers to be in Grand Rapids that come to settle here burned the orchard down. It's kind of like they wanted to erase the memory of these natives, and it's kind of like when a couple breaks up and one of them goes and takes all the other couple's belongings and stick it out in the front yard and burn it up. They burned that plum orchard down. Well, it took me a while. It took me probably 8-10 years to convince them. I kept knocking on doors at the city, and they allowed me to put up a commemoration to that orchard in the Nowbin Park. By the way, I'm the one that gathered some elders, and we named that park. And I was actually the first person to throw a gathering that we still do today called the Homecoming of the Three Fires. It's not a powwow, it's a gathering, But anyway, they allowed me to put that commemoration to that plum orchard there. And they didn't want to put any plum trees there, though, because in the city parks, the plum trees create a kind of they drop fruit and they bring in insects, and they require different maintenance. So they didn't want to put a plum tree there. But I'm kind of persistent, and they put one plum tree there. And I've actually, for the last, I think, 3 years now, I've actually eaten plums from that orchard. But anyway, this was a healing circle, and I'm going to tell you one more story to this story, and then I'll be finished. But I have a old student that was a grandma, and she took in her children and her grandchildren because the mother was having problems, and she was doing. See, my mother was a boarding school person. She was taken away. She was so afraid that I was going to be taken away, my brothers and sisters was going to be taken away. So a lot of Native people worry that trauma is still within them, that their children are going to be taken away. And this grandma took in these children, and she had to take them to a doctor's appointment, a physical, and she called me up and wanted to ride because she didn't have a car. And but I had a kind of an important appointment the next day and I couldn't take her. So I says, well, do you take the bus? And she says, oh yeah, we take the bus all the time. And I says, how about if I drop you off some bus fare? And she says, oh, that'd be wonderful. Then I could make that appointment. She was so worried that she was going to do something wrong and get those children taken away. Well, I dropped her off some bus fare, and she was kind of a basket case. She was just crying and weeping, and she thought that might be her last days with her grandchildren, and then once they're in the system, they can go anywhere. They might not see them for years. But she wasn't doing real well, And I says, let's go down by the river. And I took her to that plum orchard, and she read the inscription on there, and we sat by the river, and this was a woman's healing spot, right? When she left, she was laughing and happy, and she took her kids the next day, and they didn't get taken away, and now the kids are older, out of high school, and they're on their own now, but that circle still, the comforts of the sounds of the river and the water going by actually worked with that woman, and that was 200 years later. from the time of that circle. So that spirit of that healing is still there. Well, I want to read. I was also allowed. People let me write stuff like, and I'll thank Grand Rapids Downtown Inc. for this. They sponsored this, but we put a plaque there with the one plum tree that grew there in Bizon Mampi Bangati Win Teg. He will win Kajimazi the Jujaman Mean Cause Gaga Dunes. And that's in our native language. But I'm going to tell you what it means in English, and those will be my last words. But the words, this translated in English says, "Come here in peace. Exist in the harmony of the moment, and leave on a healing path." Miigwech.